Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I am KMBest. He is Lamby Series. You can tell us apart because I am wearing glasses and he is not. Now, we have a bunch of cards to talk about from the upcoming Guardians season. As usual, we go week by week, but there still are 3 of them coming out in the first week. The Season Pass, the Season Pass Plus, and the Series 5. So let's start with Star-Lord, Master of the Sun, a 4/5 with an on-reveal ability that gives you 1 energy for each turn you have ended with unspent energy, and also gains that much power. So if you play this guy on turn 5, which he seems pretty clearly designed to do, having skipped energy every turn, you will end up with a 4/10 and 5 energy. Effectively, this guy is giving you that energy back. If you're already skipping energy like high evolutionary decks are going to be doing, this seems like a very free inclusion to get effectively the same amount of energy as anyone else and free roll the fact that you skipped earlier in the game. But more than that, this is also a card that gives you the energy on the right turns of the game. I would much rather have that energy on the final turn of the game than have it earlier in the game because I am able to use it more effectively later.
Yeah, so the thing about this card is that we mentioned earlier in the previous episode as well. It's kind of like a second fallen one per se for that deck as well, which is very good, right? Like you have a second combo enabler for your combo deck. It just builds consistency for the deck. The stats is also nothing to shy away from, right? Like random 4/10, just cause your deck does what it's supposed to do. It fits perfectly. I would say it's really, really good. In that deck in particular, struggle a little bit to see where it will shine in any other deck. To be completely frank, right now anyway. But I mean, you guys really only care about right now because it's whether you want to buy the card or not. But I think it's something worth considering because at the end of the day, it makes a combo deck more consistent, and that's what combo decks always want. They don't need more 100s of power. You just need to hit 100 once. They need more ways to get there consistently, and this is something that can do that.
Yeah, the Man-Spider combo deck, I think, benefits pretty heavily from this as Fallen One number 2. And the play pattern here that we're talking about is skip or play off curve turns 1 through 3, Man-Spider on 4, play this floating on 5, activate Man-Spider on it, so you get 2 triggers of the on-reveal, which, if I'm not mistaken, should be about 20 power of a guy, and then also 14 energy. So that use case seems pretty locked in to me. Like if you're playing Man-Spider, Taskmaster, Fin Fang Foom, some combination of those cards, you want to play both of them on the final turn of the game, you're going to be doing that. Now, I will also say that this card is designed, it seems, for high evolutionary. So I don't think we can only talk about the Man-Spider application because that is probably what it's going to be best at doing, but also that's the kind of thing that is, like, if anything gets a card like this nerfed, it's going to be that kind of stuff, right? Like, that kind of thing is what would get this card nerfed. What would give this card a safe home and make it a safe good buy is if it was actually making high evolutionary good. Do you think it has the ability to do that?
Yeah, so that's a good point, right? Because high evolutionary from the dawn of time has been when it was good, it was the simple deck that was good. It does simple things and it does it well. And then when it was good, then it's easy for a lot of players to just pick it up and then play because not everybody wants to play the big brain deck as well. So I do think that if this card gets too much attention, it's because it makes the simple deck too good. So I'm very curious to see if you can make the simple deck too good, because the thing about making the simple deck too good is because the adoption from the masses will be a lot faster, right? If the simple deck becomes very powerful. So yeah, I'm very curious to see if this does that for high evolutionary.
Yeah, I do think that if you're the one saving grace this card has is that if you're trying to symbiote Spider-Man it, you're very vulnerable to Cosmo. Every Man-Spider deck, if you're playing out a symbiote Spider-Man, you're like, I'm gonna Fallen One or I'm gonna Star-Lord here, and you get Cosmoed, you just lose. So there is a gate on this, right? It's not just going to run over anything, but a lot of that is down to the fact that a lot of the show decks are Cosmo decks by nature. There's just a lot of the natural counterplay to this in the metagame already. And I do think that that is an interesting space for a card like this to release in, which pushes me more towards wanting it to be an Evo card early and not play for all-in Symbiote Man versions of this. Next up is Magus, who is a 3/5 with potentially the weirdest activate text ever printed on a Marvel Snap card. He looks at your unspent energy, he copies a card with the amount of energy you have not spent that turn, and then he doesn't trigger that card's on reveal. So what this card is doing is copying static abilities, and it's copying ongoings. Because as far as I know, it can't copy activates, because every time you try to use an activate to get a copy of an activate, your activate card has already been used. We know how this works from the way Symbiote Spider-Man works. If you Symbiote Spider-Man onto an activate card, you can't activate that card because the Symbiote Spider-Man has already been activated. So there are really only two things I can see doing with this card with its current text. Thing number one is copying like a 1-drop in my deck that is already skipping a turn skipping energy every turn, right? I am going to copy my Sunspot. I am going to copy my Misty Knight, right? I'm going to do that in my high Evo deck, and I'm just going to be fine with that because I'm already skipping one every turn. That's what I'm doing because of Star-Lord. Cool. All right. You could do that. Thing number two is I am playing Living Tribunal, or I am playing Sarah, and I am skipping turn 5 to get the effect.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of the only things I see this card functionally doing. Which of those excites you the most?
Okay, so you actually mentioned like the important point here, which is this card is really designed to, like, for now, right? Like the two things that it's designed to do, you're either supposed to play very like high tempo in the sense whereby if you are skipping only one energy, you're copying an effect that is like worth skipping that one energy, like a Sunspot, like a Misty Knight. So you're probably playing like a very tempo based strategy, because skipping one energy with this kind of tempo based strategy is fine, you know. Then on the other hand, like the more like out there version is you skip an entire turn and you copy something that has like great impact on the entire game, which is usually a very combo deck thing, right? So it's like two very distinct spectrums. So you're either playing very high tempo, copying 1-drops, maybe sometimes 2-drops, or skipping an entire turn, copying like the Sarah effect. You know, you skip an entire turn to get the Sarah effect. Okay, that's kind of okay, I guess. So I think it's easier to do the first one, because you have to ensure that the thing that you want to copy, let's say you skip an entire turn, right, is still in your deck, right? Because like if it's not in your deck, you're skipping an entire turn, and you probably won't even end up skipping the entire turn. You won't even play the card on the board if the thing is not in your deck. So I think it's a lot easier to achieve the first case scenario of just copying something small and then go from there. So maybe this can fit in that high evolutionary thing that we were talking about.
Yeah, it has a similar dynamic to Star-Lord, where it's like, are you playing this fair or are you playing this unfair? And playing this fair is you put it in your high Evo deck and you copy a Misty Knight or a Sunspot.
It's probably not that good to play this fair as well, even though it's probably easier to play
It is a
fair. That's the thing.
3/5, right? Though, because like it is
Yeah.
it's a 3/5. There's a lot of things that make this deck appealing to me, and largely it's just like these are good cards in a deck that very often has to play bad cards. So like that is quite appealing to me. But there's also this thing where it's like what Star-Lord is doing is giving you the ability to play a big guy and a tech card, and that's typically been a pretty like good thing to be doing as well. I don't know. I'm interested to see how that ends up, because I do think he's very binary. There's no middle for this card. It's either doing something that enables your combo, or it's doing something very small ball. And I think that is an interesting spot for any card to be in.
Actually, if you look at like Magus and the Star-Lord, right? Like it looks like, just based on looking at both cards, you definitely want to eyeball the Star-Lord first as like the base of like
Yeah.
these kind of things are good. And then like if the Star-Lord thing works, then we will consider like if the Magus can fit in that deck or not, or something like that. So I feel like however good Magus can be, it's gonna be like more based on if the whole Star-Lord thing works out first, then people will start considering maybe Magus also fits.
Yeah. Next up is Moon Dragon. 2/2 end of turn. If you spent all your energy on one card this turn, give this +2 power. This is Chamber for Doom 2099, but it's worse than Chamber. And so that's basically like what this card is, right? Like that's your point of comparison. Chamber was really good. It was, I won't say meta breaking, but it was, I think you could argue, at least defining of the existence of a deck. Like this is
I think it made a deck, man.
Yeah.
Like it made a deck relevant. To
yeah, like without Chamber, ramp doesn't exist. Without this, I think you could like in 2 days we'll be able to say without this Doom 2099 won't exist. If you're playing a Doom 2099 deck, you're playing this card. It is worse than Chamber though. And a lot of that is down to it. This is just simply not a deck that has the ability to ever play that later. Where like sometimes in a ramp deck, you will actually be able to, through various shenanigans, play a Chamber on turn 5 alongside something else. Like it's not a very common line, but it can happen, and the chamber will still be pretty big. And so you'll still see some of that kind of stuff. And even then, like, maybe you're not playing the chamber out, but just it being a 2 that you can play alongside a blink on the final turn of the game when you have 7 energy. That's also something that actually does help you out. Like, there is more flexibility in the ramp version of this. There is probably a better card when you compare the chamber to Moondragon, but I think they are the same thing in terms of a very defined support piece to a very specific archetype that basically immediately becomes part of the core of that archetype because it just has such high potential.
Yeah, so I don't really have much to add for this card, but I just want to address like a very important point about like 2 costs. This is basically the 2 cost scaler of whatever deck it's in, right? So 2 cost scalers, they have to have very big impacts on the game. Because the thing about scalers is like the reason why it's called a scaler is because you play it earlier and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So the thing about 2 cost scalers is they must be super impactful. And I feel like for this card, a card that you only or really want to play on turn 2, and really it's really pretty bad like outside of turn 2, it's not influential enough. Like if you think of all the good 2 cost scalers in like the past of the game, right? Like if you didn't have it on turn 2, it's kind of sad, but when you do have it, it's huge. I feel like if you have this on turn 2, it's also not that huge of a deal, you know. It's obviously you want it on 2, but if you don't have it on 2, it's not that bad. Like if you missed your pre-nerf Angela or you missed your pre-nerf Tina on 2, that felt painful. This one probably wouldn't even feel that bad. So I don't think this is gonna be that.
I'm going to go the other way around. I think this card is totally unplayable if you don't play it on turn 2.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to play it outside of turn 2, but
Okay.
if I don't, yeah, you get what I'm trying to say.
Now,
I don't even want to play it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
this
don't
card
wanna
does
play it
not
when
get
get
played
it
if
on
it's
turn
not 2. Just simply doesn't happen. Because its own condition precludes you even getting the proc if you're playing it on not 2. This is the most you have to play this on turn 2 or never again card they have ever made.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, since we're on this topic, like it's really good to talk about why Chamber made the deck, right? Because Chamber's a 2-drop that that is powerful for that deck and can be played pretty much whenever, and it's fine.
I'll disagree on that. I do think Chamber is mostly still only 2.
Yeah,
but
of
it's
course,
less
but, like,
only 2 than this.
The
Yeah.
flex that allows you to play it like a 2+5 is quite a big deal.
Potentially the biggest change in the OTA actually happened to Deafening Chord. With losing that -1, it is just a much less free inclusion in Sholo decks, which is, in my opinion, a great thing to happen to that card, because it was very much a free inclusion of interactivity that Sholo, frankly, doesn't really need. There's no good reason for Sholo to also have free-rolling relevant tech cards. And because this card was so easily able to help fulfill Sholo's conditions without clogging the board up with stuff, it just got to do that. The loss of Deafening Chord is actually probably the biggest thing that happened to Sholo. A lot of what's still going on in the space is Deafening Chord is no longer holding up the deck. So you had this ability with Deafening Chord, with Cosmo, with Iceman, with Cable, with all these disruptive cards to do a lot of meaningful and powerful disruption. That is interesting in the context of how this deck is playing out in the modern age of Sholo. What I'm really trying to get across here is that the big loss was Deafening Chord, not anything else that happened to Sholo. The disruption can still be there, but you actually are giving something up to run Deafening Chord now, and you don't, like, the whole point of Sholo was you kind of weren't giving anything up to do that.
Correct.
And now that you are, it's a still very powerful but notably different deck. And I just want to really shout that out. I didn't expect the Deafening Chord thing to have as much of an impact as it had. I would argue it is the most impactful change in the OTA.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the whole point of Deafening Chord that we always mention in the past is just, even if you don't like get rid of a very like prominent effect, it's still just -1, right? You get like a free -1 that contributes towards the end game of playing multiple cards for the Shao. So it's like an enabler that it can be used on anything, you know. So I feel like that was one of the biggest things that Chord had going for it. Plus it was cheap, you know, so that's why it could do that. Yeah, so now the thing is, like, if you want to play Chord in your deck, you're actually playing it specifically to like actually remove very specific effects, which makes it a lot less flexible and good of a card, right? Because -1 is the universal because less points equals higher chance of you winning. Most snipe games are won by points. So like at the end of the day, I think losing the ability for it to randomly get rid of points while being a cheap enabler, it's one of the things that hurts it the most. And probably like you said, I agree, it's one of the biggest things that like affected this whole like Sholo deck.
Let's talk about what the hell is going on with Sholo recently. I think largely the biggest thing is people are hybridizing it more. You're seeing a lot of Batroc Sholo. You're seeing a lot of like I'm playing Elsa Bloodstone Sholo. You're seeing a lot of just like I am no longer only a Sholo deck. I am now actually devoting cards to the engine here because Sholo itself is a little bit weaker, and that 5/6 is actually like I'm not going to say it's like as relevant as you'd probably want a change to be, but it's more relevant than I would have expected the change to be. Like, just being able to be like, oh, I'll just play around the other lanes and I have a plan for how this goes down. I feel like a lot more show matchups for me right now are 50-50s, where it's like there's one good roll on the spider and that's the one they win. And if they roll the wrong on the spider, I will win the game. It's kind of interesting the way they tend to play out. Like, I do think that the card is still probably the best thing to be doing, if I had to guess. But it's by a significant margin less the best thing to be doing at 5/6. And I think largely the biggest part of this is that changes to Merlin, changes to Sholo, changes to Spider-Ham, changes to Maverick, changes to all these cards mean that you need a coherent backup plan now. All of that means that you are no longer able to just like win games with just pile of disruptive cards and then the Sholo core. Or it's a lot harder to do. And it's a lot more reliant on actually drawing Sholo and a doubler. And so you end up like getting stretched a little bit too thin. And I think that's just a really good spot for the deck to be in the sense of like, at least they're actually investing in the deck building now. At least they're doing things.
So I feel like this is like an inevitability thing as well, whereby like you mentioned like the Merlin nerf, the Shao nerf, then even the Cord nerf and stuff like that. It's like little bits of points that they gradually take away, and then now you start to feel the effect of all these little bits of points being taken away, which is why now they actually start to really feel it. They start to have to pivot towards like more other like additional point engines or game plans, which is why like the Batroc stuff and the Stomper stuff is like seeing light again, because that's a very strong point engine that doesn't rely fully on Xiao Lao, right? So it's really just it's just something that I knew was going to happen eventually, because like if you gradually take away a bit, suddenly when you feel it, then people start to pivot. So this is probably the pivot point where people start to feel the sometimes lack of points from what it used to be, and then they start to play more engines. But anyway, in your opinion, do you think the move Stomper thing is the best one right now? You do think it's the best one right now?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's the best one right now?
It's got the best points package wrapped up in it. It doesn't give up playing Cosmo. And the only thing it gives up, and this is a meaningful thing, it gives up playing Merlin. That's really meaningful. It's got to play a Kate Bishop instead because it only has Maverick and not Scarlet Spider. And so by being a Maverick deck, you need 1-drops to target the Maverick with. And so you have to be a Kate Bishop deck instead of a Merlin deck. But with the nerfs to Merlin, that's not nearly so bad as it was 2 weeks ago, right? Like 2 weeks ago, that would have been a ridiculous sentence. Today, they're actually just kind of a lot closer. And I think that that's largely what's making it better relatively, is like it was already one that couldn't really be a Merlin deck. It's hybridized in a bit of a different way. It's less of a full combo deck, but it just has a better baseline points package. It's part of why I'm kind of interested in like the Elsa builds of it, because the Elsa builds of it get to be Maverick decks and also Scarlet Spider decks and also have a backup points package, right? That's an interesting position, I think, to be in, where you're like, oh no, this is actually pretty nice. Like, if this is close enough in point output to the move stuff, then I can see it being better because it works better with what Sholo is doing. Yeah. I don't know if it's close enough in point output to the move stuff, though.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, because like we talked about, you mentioned that you prefer the so-called like move base package one, and that one doesn't naturally run Merlin, right? So because it doesn't naturally run Merlin, it gives combo decks a bit more breathing room per se, especially those like magic based ones, right?
Yeah, we gotta talk about that. Like, combo decks are kind of the I guess, I don't know, the B plot of this whole season. Like the A plot of this season is Sholo. The B plot of this season is, wow, there's a lot of like formerly terrible decks that are just like shockingly good right now. Decks that are benefiting heavily, like when the tech apocalypse happened and people were like, oh my god, it's just going to be counting numbers and whoever does the most numbers and no one's going to play interaction anymore and it's going to be terrible. I think that would be happening right now if it weren't for Sholo. We've got Man Spider, we've got Living Tribunal, we've got Zombie Galacti. Like, these are all decks that are benefiting from a metagame that Sholo creates that is hard to play tech in. And when it's hard to play tech, well, guess what's going to be really good is the thing that does the most numbers ever. And so the only real tech cards you're going to see a lot of the time are Merlin that'll handle magic stuff, and then like a Cosmo, which weirdly, and I know this is going to sound insane, this kind of pushes me towards wanting to be a Tribunal gamer. Because what are those cards doing against that? Like, genuinely, like, yeah, okay, I'll Magic and Tribunal, but I still have lines that I can turn 6 Tribunal you. I could still get you on a turn 6 Tribunal. That can happen. Like, I maybe a move deck as well, right? Like, that's a lot of stuff that is not necessarily all that vulnerable to Cosmo. Like, maybe they'll be able to like guess Cosmo a Hellion, but I think I'm just fine with that. Like, that, if that's your counterplay, I think I'm probably winning most of the time. Like, if you zoom out and you say they're probably not playing a lot of Deafening Chord, the parameters of this metagame as a combo deck are, I want to have a lot of points, I want to be a deck that beats Magic, I want to be a deck that doesn't rely on Magic or doesn't have to rely on Magic, and I want to be a deck that beats Cosmo. You have Tribunal, you have the base ongoing lists, you have Move. Those are decks that I look at and I'm like, there's probably something here.
Yeah, the turn 6 Tribunal has always been something that has intrigued me a lot. Like, I mean, obviously the deck is best wins on turn 7, right? But like, there's a lot of ways it can win on turn 6, man. I've been going on about this for a while already, but I feel like being able to play a combo deck that wins often, even not in its best conditions, is a big deal, Like, it's a big deal for a combo deck. That kind of just allows you to play around most things, because like most counters are always for like the things that make the combo deck win the hardest, right? Like the removal for locations with Merlin and stuff like that. But then of course, if you don't have to rely fully that hard on it, right, then your deck still can function amidst all these conditions.
I want to talk just a little bit about season pass design, which I think is really stark when you look at Star-Lord and you look at Sholo. What I find interesting about both of these cards is that Star-Lord is very siloed off. He is only ever going to do his thing in a very specific context.
What does siloed off mean?
Siloed off means like separate. He is
only like in its own,
like as in a silo is where like the derivation comes from. But like, yeah, like it just means like he's his own thing. He's in his own lane and he's not doing things that other cards really do, except for the cards that are also in his lane.
Okay.
And that gives him like a bit of a smaller base for appeal. There are less people that are going to be doing the things that he wants to do. And I think Sholo is sort of similar. You just don't notice that he's similar because he's so strong that everyone entered his silo. You know what I mean? Like everyone, instead of a card that came out and was like, all right, this really only goes in one deck, everyone was like, no. You are the thing. We are entering your space. We're doing what you're doing now, right? I guess largely what I'm trying to get at here is, which one of those would you prefer? Like, I think Star-Lord, assuming it's not amazing, but like is still a good card, that's a healthier spot for the game to be in. But it also means that, like, people are probably going to be less excited about it. How do you balance something like that? Like that kind of thing where it's like, I want to do a very like cool and interesting game piece for a specific deck. I don't want to make it super busted, but I probably have to make it strong, right? Because if I don't make it strong, then it's like I didn't even make the game piece in the first place.
Yeah, so this might not be popular opinion, but I actually prefer the Sholo scenario. Like personally, like it's like Sholo instead of the Star-Lord having its own like separate domain or whatever. Like I like Sholo. I like the fact that Sholo expanded its domain. I'm doing that on purpose, by the way. It expanded its domain, and everyone is just trapped in it without realizing it. And in order to survive, they have to adapt. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like it's Jujutsu Kaisen. But anyway, so like I like that more because like new cards defining meta games is totally fine for me. You know, I like the fact that like if you print a new card, it can define a meta game as long as it's like a beatable meta game. Like you can escape the domain or somehow beat the domain. It's fine. And then like you build a whole meta around it. I like that. I like that personally. Rather than like you print a card that can only do one thing, which is the Starlord example. You guys like that Jujutsu Kaisen
Doing a
reference, right? 'Cause I
domain
love it.
clash, except Sholo
Yeah,
is just like a higher
yeah.
level domain than anyone else.
I mean, his
Like
domain has
it's
expanded far beyond the reaches of
yeah,
just his silo.
it's that thing like from really early in the series. It's Gojo and Jogo,
Yeah.
and like that's what's happening.
Jogo's the
with-
volcano guy, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. That's what's
he
happening.
only does one
with-
thing,
yeah.
and then he, yeah.
Yes. Oh man, that's actually such a good paradigm. We should compare all of the like they only do one thing guys to like Jogo and Hanami in them.
And
Yeah.
Jogo and Gojo. Because it's funny as well. Because yeah.
All right, I know this is a sort of provocative title, right? Nerf Batroc. All right, I get it. The point I'm trying to make here is I kind of think this move stuff, like they've been slowly putting points of power back in the move deck since they nerfed Human Torch, right? You'll like, oh, Hydra Stomper got a point of power. What the hell's up with that? That card is the last card in the world that needs a point of power. Oh, you know, let's buff Topaz. You know, let's just keep making the move deck better and better and better. To me, I think a lot of the reason you nerf the move deck in the first place is because it has an asymmetric skill distribution, which is to say that when it's actually good, it won't be good at lower ranks. And if it's ever good at lower ranks, it's way too good at higher ranks. It's the opposite problem that like a Surtur deck or a Doom 2099 deck have. And my instinct is that this is unfixable. So unless you're gonna fix that, unless you're gonna make a card that is specifically like a dumbass can play this in a move deck. And I think they've done a pretty okay job of that. Like, I think an example of a dumbass move card, Red Wing. Red Wing is a great example of a dummy move card. A card is for that's a dummy card for dum-dums. That's perfect. It's exactly what you want. I just sort of think that like until you're doing that, as long as your cards are like positioning based and are asking more of you than a typical Marvel Snap card, you're going to get these imbalances between low elo and high elo. And those are going to be part and parcel of moves' existence, which is something that I feel like I wish they were accounting for in a meaningful way.
So your pitch is that you don't think that such imbalances are good or what? Because
Yeah.
I feel like with higher skill cap decks, there will always be an imbalance, right? Like I don't think they buffed. Okay, so I do agree that I don't think some of these cards needed to be buffed, right? But like maybe they were just in fear of like after they were removing so much points out of everything they needed to like give points back. Maybe this was not the card that you should have given points back to. I guess I can agree.
Yeah, like if you're
on
going to
that
do
aspect.
it, put it on Dagger, you know? If you're going to give the deck more points,
Yeah.
give Dagger more points. Make Vulture
Yeah.
scale bigger. You know, like do that. That's the kind of thing that a player anywhere can understand. Oh, I move this guy a lot. What I'd be really worried about is putting power in stuff like Topaz. Like that's really worrying to me. Like that kind of stuff where it's like I am reticent to feel like that's a good direction. Like that's just the kind of thing where it's like fundamentally I look at this and I'm like, you're putting more power in the tricky part. You're making more of this deck about the tricky move stuff that makes it harder to play. You're putting more power behind the skill cap. I don't like it. And I bring this up to say that I kind of think that the Batroc deck is another deck that's in that space. Like, it previously probably wasn't, but I think we're probably hitting the point where, like, Batroc, Craven, Sam Wilson, sometimes a Hellion, all this, like, move your cards around stuff. I worry that, like, this is just a space that isn't fruitful for them to put power into. That is largely my concern, because it'll create these imbalanced curves of power where the top end of ladder, this is going to be a really relevant thing, and then people that aren't very good at it will not understand why it matters at all. And I don't love that. I would like to avoid both of the extremes. Like, I think they should aim at like the middle 70% of like sort of skill curves where it's like this deck gets linearly better the better you are. That's what you want. Whereas a deck like Surtur has a very flat skill curve. A deck like the move decks has a very exponential skill curve. And I think you want to avoid both of those things.
So, okay, so based on that, like now I'm just curious, what is this supposed KMBest Batroc nerf, right? Because you get this right.
I mean, I think you could very easily make Batroc say +1, and he would deserve it.
Wow.
I think you could very easily do that, and I think he would deserve it. Like dude, he's double triggering my Kraven. He's double triggering my Hydra Stomper. He's the best card in that deck by worlds. Like he is so unbelievably good. He could say +1. I would still play him in that deck every iteration of that deck I put together. I'm not saying that that's what I would do, but what I am saying is like that is how much worse you could make him, and he would still be one of the best cards in that deck.
Really? You can make him? You think you can make him that much worse? Okay,
yes.
Okay.
I do.
I'm just curious. I don't think you can make him that much worse, but
I genuinely believe that. Like it is.
Okay.
It is the only deck that has good early scalers anymore. It's the only one.
True, though.
There are no other decks that do it. It is the only deck. So it's competing with nothing. And then you look at every other early scaler in the game, and you're like, okay, yeah, Angela. I definitely need my 1-drop to scale higher than Angela. What are we talking about? We have a 1-drop that scales higher than Angela. Our 2-drops also scale higher than any other 2-drop. Our 3-drop is the biggest 3-drop in the game because of the scaling that we're doing on our 2s. The whole thing is just like, why is there so many? Why? This is the only deck that plays like 2023 Marvel Snap. It's the only one. No other deck is playing 2023 Marvel Snap except this, because it's the only deck that has the power capacity to do that because of just how completely batshit stuff like Batroc is.
Yeah, can you imagine that if they actually had this deck in the Silk Smooth era?
Unbelievable.
It's just wrong, right?
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I have been KMBest. He has been Lamby Series. You can tell us apart by our glasses, and he's going to take us out.
All right, guys. Hope you like this episode. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
We're identical!
100%.